Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective. And today is an exciting day in Canada and therefore the world. We're going to be talking about the Canadian election, what took place, and all of that good stuff. I am, if you're watching the visual version of the show, in a almost empty room in my final days as a resident of California, or should I say, California. Now, you might ask, well, why are you even hosting the show when you got more important things to do? And I say more important than the Daily Objective is a contradiction in terms. Speaking of contradictions, Canada, they have their own prime minister, their own president. I always just assumed Canada just does whatever our president says. In America, we don't really pay much attention to Canada. That's the truth. You know, this occurred to me recently, watching Mad Men, and seeing Don Draper's beautiful French-Canadian wife. I'm thinking, we've got our own little version of France right on our continent, Quebec, French Canada. We've got France right here. We never even think of visiting it because it's in Canada. Who wants to go there? So anyway, I could sit here and bash Canada all day, and I will. Let's meet my co-host here. Here's a guy who, if they say, if you want to know about politics outside of America, turn to a European. They're educated. They know all the stuff that's happening all over the place. Please let us know what you think in the chat room. Leave us a like, super chat your thoughts, questions, or just to show support. And consider becoming an Ayn Rand Center UK member by visiting our website, link in the chat and in the description. And now let's meet him, the Greek myth himself, Nikos Sotirakopoulos.
Thank you very much. So yesterday we had elections in Canada. Now, why? There was not any particular political crisis or something. The Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, thought that he could call early elections so that he could solidify his political hegemony. Now, that was a Pyrrhic victory. By the way, if you want to know where the phrase Pyrrhic victory comes from, he was a Greek general who won a battle, but although he won a battle, he didn't really win the war, or something like that. So Trudeau had a Pyrrhic victory. So he won. He was the first party in seats in the parliament, but he hasn't got the absolute majority. This doesn't mean that he needs to find someone else to govern with. It means he needs to find some people in the parliament to pass particular legislation. So you could say, why is this of interest to us? So the
Exactly.
the first thing of interest is Trudeau himself. And the second thing of interest is how can someone who hasn't got the best, so basically the same question we had in California. How come that these uncharismatic, boring, their hype is done politicians, how can they keep winning, and why is it that there is no alternative to them? So this is what is of interest to me in the Canadian elections.
Interesting. I never thought of Gavin Newsom or no, I actually forgot his name. What is it? Trudeau. I never thought of them as uncharismatic. I mean, there are more charismatic people than them, but I mean, they look to me like good career politicians. They're good looking, obviously, and they're good at, doing this when they talk and speaking with that kind of inflection that's like, I care about this because this matters to me. So anyway, that's interesting for you to say that there's a pattern of uncharismatic people winning over and over again. But in any case, what happened in this election? Trudeau won, but not as much as he would have liked. So he doesn't have the equivalent would be if you're American and you need everything translated into Americanese. It's like the president has a Congress and Senate that's not the same party. So that's kind of the equivalent of what's happening in Canada. Trudeau does not have he doesn't have majority rule.
Yeah, so actually he didn't even win the popular vote. So the Conservative Party won the popular vote with 34% approximately. Now, here's the even more interesting thing. The Conservative Party is what we'd call boring conservatives, which is non-Trumpian conservatives, which is conservatives who try to build and who try to reach to the other side. And if you remember, actually, you don't remember because you were not in that episode, but we triggered we triggered some people in the chat when we say that conservatives post-Trump find themselves in the following conundrum. If they're not Trump-like, they're considered boring, conservatives, whatever. So Trump was like this drug that once you get hooked to that drug, you need a very high dose to get excited. So the type of conservative who's not like Trump is not going to emote that enthusiasm. But if they are like Trump, the ceiling is lower. There are many, many people, even around the conservative milieu, who are going to be a bit alienated. So the question for conservatives is what is to be done? So the only party that significantly gained in terms of popular vote, actually two parties gained in terms of popular vote. The one is the New Democratic Party, which is more like it used to be the central left party, but now it's moving more towards the left, the new left type. And the other party that gained significantly, although it didn't elect a single member of parliament because of the system, is the People's Party. And this is a populist party. And they use the term with honor, that's not like an assault, by a guy called Maxime Bernier. So he was the kind of like Trump, more serious version, but he tried to capitalize on people being skeptical about the lockdowns, being skeptical about the vaccine mandates, and all that stuff. So you have this new type of right trying to emerge, getting a lot of enthusiasm, getting a lot of people, not getting seats in the parliament. Because of many people going to that party, the conservatives cannot win. So the conservatives win the majority, but they're not in power. So now the right is in this conundrum. So this is one of the two issues that I'm interested in. The other is Trudeau himself. We're going to talk about Trudeau. The one thing is, what's the way out for the right? So put it in your mind in the American right. You have a Mitt Romney, boring, cack, whatever. You have a Trumpian figure. How do you build a majority? How do you build people who are, who don't like the BS that comes together with a Trumpian figure? And this is an almost, in my mind at the moment, unsolvable riddle for conservatives.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even really know what conservative even means. And I think Ayn Rand in her lifetime was saying that term means nothing. She would use scare quotes when writing conservative and liberal. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know, but like maybe there was a point where Rand was using scare quotes for one of the two, like for, let's say, conservatives, but not for liberal, or vice versa. And then she ended up using them for both. But maybe I'm completely misremembering. But yeah, she used quotation marks for conservative and liberal, certainly after at a certain point. And what do those things even mean? So like, back in, let's say, the 80s, conservative meant trying to preserve like the 1940s. Now, conservatives are trying to preserve the world that we knew in the 80s and 90s, I guess. Like they're saying, and at this point, we've got Republicans who are saying basically yes to every Democrat policy until all this race and gender stuff became their main shtick. So yes to socialized medicine, or at least pushing in that direction. Yes to protecting American jobs and bringing the jobs home, which includes limiting immigration heavily. Yes to all types of, yes to all types of laws that curtail freedom or liberties, because ultimately Republicans often tend to be just yesterday's Democrats. I mean, this has happened generation after generation. So anyway, jumping back over to Canada, as we obviously must do, because that is the topic of the show. Believe me, it brings me no joy to do. In Canada, they're like, what are conservatives actually basically about? Are they more fiscally responsible? Is that their thing? Are they trying to reduce entitlements? Do they have an opinion on immigration? I imagine they do, with all of the immigrants that they've got over there. Is that what?
But that's the thing. Mm-hmm. They haven't got an initiative. The initiative is either with Trudeau. So Trudeau, and now we can talk a bit about Trudeau, and then you'll understand what's the problem of conservatives. Trudeau rises in power in 2015, and soon his PR becomes, I'm the anti-Trump. I'm liberal, so I'm not like these crazy people, Bernie Sanders type of stuff. But at the same time, I am the wet dream of every progressive. I remember in his first cabinet, he literally paraded members of his cabinet who were part of a minority, which is one of the most untasteful things I've seen in public policy. He literally paraded. Here's someone who wears like. Anyway, it was a very weird spectacle. Or he would demote. He would cry in public in terms of shedding tears of guilt for the past of exploitation against indigenous people in Canada. So he does all these things. He used terms like, I think, secession, like recession, secession, because it mostly influences women, things like that. So he's that type of person, and that's why I'm calling him uncharismatic. Yes, he's very good looking, he has this, but he's not, there's no essence there. And yet, this guy has the initiative because he says, there are two Canadas. The one is me, the other is everyone else who are anti-vaxxers and don't accept the minorities and all that stuff. And that's why he had the initiative also to call the elections. So what I find interesting in Trudeau is the more you see these gestures, the more you see this moral posturing. To me, more it says there's no essence there. So a question I have, for example, is what will we remember Trudeau for? If you take away all the symbolism, all the stuff, what will we remember him for? Yeah, okay, maybe a lockdown that was stricter than it should be. So that's where the liberalism ends, because again, you have to be the people's protector, and you have to be basically a non-statist. But what is the essence of Trudeau? What is the essence of liberalism today with the American sense? Because his party is the liberal party. And my answer is basically nothing. There's a nothingness dressed with all this posturing. And my even bigger question is, how can you lose to that guy? How can you lose to that ideology? And how can you be so lacking a narrative, and I mean for the quote right, that you're losing to this type of people?
Well, united they stand. I think that was the final chapter of The Ominous Parallels by Leonard Peikoff. United they stand, meaning Democrats and Republicans, again, using America as the launch pad to understand what I'm talking about politically. United they stand, right? There's no party with any influence in America that stands for capitalism, for individual rights. I mean, people think that stuff is silly when you talk about like actual capitalism, when you talk about actual individual rights that are inalienable. People think that's cute, but it's grown-up time. We don't have, we got to deal with real politics now. So, jumping over to Canada or to really any other country, they're dealing with the same phenomenon or lack of phenomena. It's just multiple parties that basically agree that the government's job is to engineer society. The government's job is to maximize, the well-being of the people. So the question then becomes, are they going to maximize well-being by redistributing wealth? And that's the kind of more left-leaning party usually. Or are they going to maximize well-being by creating prosperity, which may involve cutting taxes and slashing regulation for the upper class and working with them, for the productive, the capitalists. But that's not capitalism. The government picking winners and losers, the government permitting little extra economic liberty in order to create jobs. I mean, that has a short shelf life, and that's not the real deal. So when they all basically agree with one another, then what is the battle actually about? The battle is actually, it becomes which politician comes off as the most sincere, which politician comes off as the most disinterested in his own gain. It's like basically to be a trustworthy politician in the minds of people today in today's world is someone I can trust, someone who's not going to be corrupted by the system. So even though everyone wants a lobby system, they simultaneously want politicians that won't participate in that lobby system, or they're only going to pay attention to certain lobbies. So we, the people, we are the lobby that should be catered to. I guess that means majority. So you and me, the non-billionaires, the non-millionaires, the non-capitalists, meaning the people that don't own the major corporations, we're the ones who should be represented by the government. The rich can fend for themselves. They'll be fine. I'm not worried about them. That's kind of people's attitude. So again, united they stand. There's no actual force. There's no actual political group or political force that is pushing for actual liberty, for capitalism on any sort of principled ground, which is why when you stand for principles, they call you a conservative, right? They call you, a loser in today's world. Pragmatists on all sides, says Marilyn in the super chats. And also we got a couple other super chats real quick. Marilyn with $2 earlier. Thank you. Jeff Bannister with $5 Canadian. Thank you. It goes to show you how nice Canadians are. I sit here and insult them. They send us money. Thank you for that. And from America, we've got Damien Alaska with $1.99 saying these chats are always so thought-provoking. That's true. That part, I agree.
Actually, I'm very interested if we have any Canadian in the chat to give us their take on Maxime Bernier. So he's the leader of the People's Party. And again, he didn't make it in the parliament, although the party, my understanding is they got some like 500,000 votes more than the Green Party, but because of the system. So I first came across Bernier, if I'm pronouncing him right, in around 2016, when people on the Trump camp, they were excited. I think I've heard him from Lawrence Southern, but I'm not even 100% sure. They said, keep a look at this guy. He's the Canadian Trump. And I'm curious if there's anything to like there. So if he's a better version, so if he's more principled in the support of freedom than Trump, or whether with this guy we see the bad things that we see with Trump. Again, some of the things I saw I liked. So being against being against the lockdowns, being in favor of a more opening, fighting some of the bad things in the culture wars. But then again, is he just a culture warrior? Which means soon you're going to have this very low horizon thing that we saw also with American conservatives, which is you fight in the mud of the culture wars, and basically you don't have a view beyond that. So if anyone has a view on Maxime Bernier, I would be very interested to hear your take on that. So I will finish with a prediction, and my prediction is that our future is going to be full of Trudeau's, of Justin Trudeau's. So I was reading something today in one of the biggest news outlets of the world. So this wasn't, let's say, The Guardian, and this is considered to be, impartial. And it said something like the charismatic progressive Justin Trudeau. So the new generation of people coming out of the university and all that stuff, you give them a Trudeau, they're excited. Because again, he talks the talk on everything that they like. And when Trudeau says the other side is against, for example, abortion, they're against science, it's throwing red meat to the future generation of opinion makers and of journalists. So the future I see is, for example, in Canada, the New Democratic Party, which is, again, this kind of new left type, with the type of Trudeau, which is the social liberal type, fighting each other to I don't want to use the term outwalk, but to be more progressive in terms of style, not in terms of substance. And the question is, what's going to happen in the other side? Is it also going to be a race to the bottom on who is going to be more anti-woke or who is going to be more provocative for the sake of it? Or is there going to be a reaction? And again, very interesting to hear our friends' views in the audience. What is the way out for conservatives from this conundrum? Trump style, you're not going to win, probably a majority. Non-Trump style, boring, not going to cause enthusiasm to the people who need to gather the troops and create noise in the culture war where today, unfortunately, the battle is fought. So for me, this is the big question that keeps coming back to my mind since the California elections. And I think we're going to see it in more instances.
Yeah. They had a guy who smoked crack, I believe. Rob Ford was his name, a Canadian, bit of a chubby fellow. Rob Ford, I think, was his name. He smoked crack. I mean, this was a scandal. This was controversial. And his answer to the media was, hey, I was drunk at the time. I was drunk. So, and I think the mature response to that is, yes, you have a drinking problem, you're not a crackhead. You only smoked it once, but if you're getting drunk in your 40s and trying crack for the first time, maybe you've got a problem with drinking. Anyway, and he's dead now, I believe. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, he passed away, so he's not going to be running for office in Canada. But he was, I think, a conservative, or he was kind of pushing back against the socialists or the redistributionists, and pushing for austerity is the word, where you don't spend so much. And I think he was kind of successful, but crack does kill, or something killed him. So he was hilarious. He died from crack, says, okay, Chandler is just speaking his nonsense. Christopher says he was hilarious and he answered every call from his constituents himself. Well, that's nice of him. I'm a little bit suspicious of that type of thing from politicians, like, yes, we're here for you, the real Americans or the real Canadians. Okay, how about be here for the Constitution? How about be here for rule of law, not so much to answer my personal calls and listen to my concerns. Let me read a couple super chats. Thank you. Sammy is bored again with 99 pence. Wow, everyone except for the European Union have contributed today. We've had Canada, USA, and UK. Not a penny from Europe. Shame on you all. Marilyn with $2. American says, my knowledge of current events comes from TDO.
That's why we try to do a good research before we come live, and we try to make 100% sure that everything we give is tested and everything we give is. So, by the way, the results we gave you are not final results, but it's almost certain that the result is going to be the one that is projected. So, but I consider this a big, a compliment. So thank you very much, Mario.
It is a compliment, and by we do research, I think you mean Nikos does research. I try to get a little bit of knowledge on the topic and to offer, here's how I approach the issue. Not so much here are the facts on the ground. Damien with 199 says crack kills. Very true. Christopher in the chat, in the regular chat, says cancer. I think cancer is what killed Rob Ford. Okay. Rest in peace. And end socialized medicine, please. Can we please privatize medicine? I firmly believe cancer and most other diseases, maybe all diseases, could have been a thing of the past if the government had completely kept their hands off of the medical industry. I mean, look at how fast Silicon Valley has progressed just in the last couple of decades, just in the last 10 years, how much more compact and fast technology has gotten. Imagine if we had 100 years of the private sector busting their butt all night, every 7 days a week, to cure diseases, to improve technologies, to create robots that can cure diseases. I mean, it's impossible to contemplate just how much progress could have been made in medicine and medical technologies by now, but for the government, by which I mean, but for the government doing what the people sent them to do, sadly, which is socialize, regulate, tax, and curtail our freedom. Thank you, Mark, for $5. American, he says, my knowledge of crack comes from TDO. Well, that I'm a little bit more confident to tell you about. All right. I guess we can jump over to Clubhouse. Have we covered the facts in Canada?
Yeah, there could be more stuff to say about Trudeau. I don't want even to mention these stupid scandals with the blackface, because again, there's no substance there. So, but I would be very interested to have Christopher, who made these comments on the Clubhouse, so he can enlighten us a bit about the People's Party and whether there's something good there, or anyone who has an opinion on these people. Because again, that's the rules of the game today. The populist right is the only thing that is moving in the right, which is making some noise. So that's why I'm particularly interested on whether there's anything there or the usual stuff. But yeah, thanks for the super chats. Thanks for making this episode interactive, although we'd expect that it might be one of the, not one of the episodes that's going to steer the biggest passion in the hearts of our audience.
I mean, my dream is to make Canada exciting. One day I'll figure out a way. Thank you, Roland, for the 499 euros. He says, chipping in for Europe. Thank you. Together, we can take over the world. Dylan, the producer behind the scenes, says it was pleomorphic liposarcoma that apparently killed Rob Ford. Rest in peace. I mean, I'm not sure if Rob Ford was the politician that, would answer all of our prayers. There's a good chance he'd be just another Trumpian nut job, but nonetheless, he was certainly entertaining to watch, and he did not deserve to die. Enric with $4.99 says, how was being with Yaron in Athens? How was it, Nikos?
The only thing that comes to mind is that it was Disneyland. It was a day in Disneyland for me. So, but I don't want to make people feel jealous. So I don't want to say how nice it was, but it was super nice. I really enjoyed it. We even ate gyros after the event.
You can't even pronounce euros?
Sorry?
You can't pronounce euros and you're from Greece?
No, I pronounce it gyros, but if I say gyros, you won't get it. So then I have
to say exactly
gyros.
It's pronounced euros, but we've got a Greek guy saying we ate gyros. Jesus Christ. All right, sorry, but please go on. You ate euros and then what?
Yeah, we ate gyros. We went to the Museum of the Acropolis. It's great having Yaron. But I don't want to flex that I spent 10 hours with Yaron. But all I was going to say is that it was Disneyland. Yaron is way more, I don't want to say sweet, but I'll say he's very much, you see him in the debates and stuff. In real life, he's super sweet and very useful. He gave, ideas about how we can do things better and all that stuff. So it was a great experience.
Well, the Israelis have a nickname, which is sabra. It's a type of fruit that's sour on the outside and sweet on the inside. So that stereotype, I think, exists for a reason. Well, I'm glad we're all glad you had a nice time, and you got to flex about this stuff because people need dreams to aspire to. Mark with $2 says, you ate euros? Oh, he spelled it like the currency. See what you did, Nikos? You confused everybody. Way to go. All right, everybody. We're going to jump over to Clubhouse now. We got a little bit of time, and that's it for today on ARC UK. Imagine there's so much content coming out of this network that it's a slow day when it's just one show and after show. This is the value that ARC UK is known for, that it's unusual for there to be just one show and after show. So,
and the reason there's only one show is that Yaron is still on tour. So today we'd have Yaron Debates Europe, but he's literally debating he's in Vienna at the moment.
So please consider supporting this enterprise by becoming an Ayn Rand Center UK member. Link in the description and in the chat. And not only get exclusive content, including Zoom calls with some of your favorite experts and teachers, but also you help this thing exist. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Nikos. God knows how this episode would have gone without you. Imagine me and Mark or Jonathan. Well, maybe Mark or Jonathan know more about Canada, but imagine just me trying to stretch this into an episode. Thank you all for joining us today. No debate today. No more content today. Please take this opportunity to read Ayn Rand and or catch up on our inventory, on our archives of content. We're jumping over to Clubhouse now. See you there, and see you back here tomorrow, same time. And goodbye.